top story. New developments in the federal case against Tina Frey, the owner of Cypress Kennel and Canine Academy. Frey has received 5 years probation for falsifying business records in order to receive more than $300,000 in funds from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Back in June, Frey pled guilty to 1 count of theft of government property in an Alexandria-based federal courtroom. According to prosecutors, between 2019 and 2020, Frey misrepresented her business, claiming she was providing educational benefits for veterans. In her plea, Frey agreed she had, at times, provided no services whatsoever. The felony charge carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison, a fine, or both. At sentencing today, prosecutors asked for a prison sentence, while Frey's attorney, Mike Small, asked for a probationary sentence since she was a first-time offender. Now, Small argued justice in the case should be, quote, tempered with mercy. Small also told the court Rapides Parish District Attorney Philip Terrell will not be prosecuting Frey on the multiple charges of animal cruelty she faces. Now, News Channel 5 spoke to Terrell, who told us he was under the impression she would be doing federal time. The probationary sentence changes his evaluation. He says he was operating under an apparent misunderstanding. Frey and her daughter, Victoria Breimer, were first arrested in August 2022 on 2 counts of aggravated cruelty to animal charges after videos of dogs in their care surfaced online, stirring up allegations of abuse. Frey was arrested again in September for a 3rd count of aggravated cruelty to animals. Frey's attorney indicated in June that they had nothing to worry about regarding those state charges. A civil lawsuit remains against Frey, filed by 7 former Cypress customers. The last hearing in the lawsuit was continued without date. Meanwhile, Frey has filed a lawsuit of her own against 3 former employees, the Humane Society of Louisiana, and its executive director, Jeff Dorson.